Willie Peake and Luther Oliver were on the Montgomery City Council from the time it started in 1975. Now both are off the council, defeated in their bids for re-election. But even though both lost in the election, they say they are happy when they look back on what the council has done since it replaced the commission form of government.
And when we had the commission form of government, we had the mayor and 2 commissioners, and all of them ran at large. Now, when we have the council, we run in districts, but we also run in a small area and can give better representation to the people.
It's much better in a lot of ways because not only can we represent our district, we represent the whole city of Montgomery.
That is not to say Mr. Oliver and Mr. Peake don't see problems with the council and consequently with the city's image.
I think it's not perfect, but it's not bad either, at all. Not bad by the standards of the people that are trying to make it look bad. It's not bad at all. I think our image is pretty good, and it can be improved by working together. There is no great strife among the council people at all. There's a little politicking going on in the council, which it should not be when you come down to the work of the city government.
We in the city of Montgomery recognize the type of city that we do have, but our image is not the same as we perceive it to be here in our city. This is one area that we need to work on. And you can get all types of opinions on this, and I just gave you my opinion. The city is a good place to live. It is an excellent city in which to live in. We need to learn to get along with our fellow man.
The question both men are looking for an answer to is whether the new council will be able to resolve those differences they say are hurting the city, differences they say will continue to cause damage unless they are addressed. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Winter is a bad season for fires simply because the space heaters, fireplaces, and wood stoves people use to keep warm can set their homes on fire if they have not been properly checked. Today's demonstration gave firefighters a chance to show off their equipment and skills and explain to the public measures that can be taken to help prevent fires in the home.
This is a good time of year to clean out your basements, get anything away from your stoves and furnaces, any type of oily rags, combustible materials, lint out of your furnaces. Just good housekeeping is very important.
Of course, Freddie the fire truck and Smokey the bear were on hand to talk to children about the evils of playing with matches. Children were also able to participate in a CPR demonstration with fire medics from Rescue Engine 91. Anyone wishing to learn more about CPR or fire safety is asked to call the Montgomery Fire Prevention Office. The fire department will inspect Montgomery area homes or give you a fire safety checklist so you can help make your home safer. Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
In case it gets on. Hey, coming out. Hey, get back and you play along.
A sour beginning for the Crimson Tide in Bayou Country. For the 4th time this year, the opponent scored on their opening play from scrimmage. Jeff Wickersham to Eric Barton covers 80 yards, and LSU led it 7-0. But the Bama defense bounced back with a big play of their own. Freshman Cornelius Bennett pours through to block this Clay Parker punt. Bennett will pick it up and take it in for the touchdown to tie the game at 7. Walter Lewis had another great day passing. In the 3rd, he goes here to Joey Jones, who makes an acrobatic catch to put Bama up by 14. Jeff Wickersham had an equally fine day, setting a school record of 343 yards through the air. This one to Mitch Andrews pulled the Tigers within 6 late. But the Tide defense stiffened when it had to on a last-ditch Tiger effort. Gary James has dropped far short of a 4th and long here. 32-26 Alabama next week. It's Southern Mississippi in Birmingham. On the Plains, Auburn broke the ice with Maryland in the second quarter on this pass from Randy Campbell to Chris Woods. But the story of the day was redshirt freshman Tommy Agee. What an effort. 2 long touchdown runs, 219 yards rushing. This 61-yarder made it 14-0 Tigers. But Maryland had Heisman candidate Boomer Esiason. He pitched the Terps in front on this pass to Greg Hill. 17-14 Terps going into the fourth. But the Tigers came right back. Bo Jackson, who along with Lionel James rushed for over 100 yards, scores here from the 6. And Agee helped put it away with his 44-yard scamper late in the fourth. Auburn gets a hard-fought 35-23 win over Maryland. Thoughts now turn to Athens, Georgia next week in what could be the SEC championship game with the Georgia Bulldogs. The Falcons jumped on top early in the second quarter when William Andrews plows in from the 2 to make it 7-0. It was 10-0 when the Saints get on the board later in the second. Wayne Wilson on the sweep. 10-7 Atlanta at halftime. But after intermission, it was all Saints. Hokie Gaijon with his 10-yard blast put New Orleans ahead to stay at 14-10. Dave Wilson to Tyrone Young then put it on ice. And the Saints beat the Falcons, second time this year. Today's final 27-10. Elsewhere today in Anaheim, Eric Dickerson's 2 TDs carry the Rams to a 21-14 win over the Bears. In Milwaukee, Lynn Dickey led the Packers with 4 touchdown passes in a 35-21 win over Cleveland. In rainy Kansas City, Raider quarterback Mark Wilson went down with a broken shoulder on this play in the third quarter. He's out for 6 weeks, but old pro Jim Plunkett stepped in and fired this 19-yard touchdown pass to Dokie Wilson. Raiders beat the Chiefs 28-20. Dallas keeps rolling right along. Fourth quarter in Philly, Danny White to pass all the time in the world. He'll find Tony Hill in the end zone for an 18-yard touchdown. Cowboys 27, Eagles 20. San Diego continues to falter without Dan Fouts. In Pittsburgh, Ed Luther fumbles the snap. Mel Blunt with the easy TD. Steelers win it in a breather, 26-3. Tampa Bay finally wins one. In Minnesota, Leroy Selman knocks the ball away from vice quarterback Steve Dills. Steve Logan scoops it up for a 54-yard touchdown. First win in 10 tries for the Bucs, 17-12 over the Vikings. And at San Francisco, Miami's rookie quarterback Dan Marino had a pair of TD passes to Nat Moore. This one covered 19 yards and tied the game at 14-all. But Uwe von Schamann got the game winner, a 23-yard field goal in the closing minutes. Dolphins beat the 49ers 20-17. The big play got LSU on the board very early. Their first play from scrimmage, Jeff Wickersham connects over the middle with Eric Martin. The speedster pours it on. The Tide defense is burned for an 80-yard touchdown. 7-0 LSU very early. But Alabama makes a big play later in the second. Clay Parker of LSU back to punt. Freshman Cornelius Bennett pours through to block the kick. He'll get up, scoop it in, and scamper in for the touchdown. Great individual effort. It's tied at 7 after a period. Second quarter now, LSU driving, Wickersham on the keeper. He's popped by Emmanuel King. The ball is loose. Alabama has it at the 7. One of 2 costly turnovers for the Tigers deep in Tide territory. The Bama offense then cranks it up. Walter Lewis to pass. He'll connect here with Jesse Bendros over the middle. Bendros is loose. He'll ramble 53 yards down to the LSU 7. From there, the Tide will take it in. Lewis back to pass. He's in trouble. Scrambles out. Finally, he spots Ricky Moore in the back of the end zone. 8:02 left in the half. 14-7 Alabama, 14-10 at intermission. Alabama increased that lead to 17-10 in the third and got more early in the fourth. Lewis scrambling finds Joey Jones, who makes a nice leaping grab, just getting 1 foot inbounds for the touchdown. 24-10 at that point. But back roared the Bengal Tigers, aided by a 70-yard kickoff return. Wickersham, who set a school record of 343 yards passing, hits Martin over the middle for a touchdown. A try for 2 pulled LSU within 6 at 24-18. But Alabama didn't roll over. They come right back. Kerry Good's dive from the 1 and a 2-point conversion made it 32-18. Wickersham then brings LSU right back. From the 9, his pass is deflected, but right into the arms of Mitch Andrews. Another 2-point conversion made it 32-26, 2:57 remaining. LSU then held. They had one last chance, but Gary James on the short pass is dropped very short of first down yardage here on 4th and long. And Alabama holds on for a hard-fought 32-26 win over LSU. Both teams started off slow offensively, and it was Auburn that finally got it going early in the second. Deep in Terrapin's territory, Randy Campbell misfires here. Joe Krause with the interception, but Maryland was called for roughing the passer and new life for Auburn. They made the most of it. Campbell connects with a wide-open Chris Woods, and the Tigers led at 7-0. Next possession, Auburn goes again. Tommy Agee up the middle here. He'll break into the open and outrace everybody for a 61-yard touchdown. And it was now 14-0 Auburn. Maryland's offense finally got on track. The dangerous Boomer Esiason hits Willie Joyner on a screen pass here. He'll pick up a big 44-yard gain that led to a field goal, 14-3 Auburn, where it stood at halftime. Third quarter now, the Tigers start off in trouble. Agee's fumble here gives the Terps the ball at the Auburn 41. Esiason then goes to work, scrambling left. He'll find Sean Sullivan in the end zone, who makes the catch after the tip, and Auburn's lead is now cut to 14-10. The Tigers then move down to the Maryland 2, but a great goal line stand by the Terps defense stops Bo Jackson here on 4th and goal. The Terps then drive it 99 yards to take the lead. The final 14 here from Esiason to Greg Hill, and Maryland led it 17-14. But back comes Auburn early in the fourth quarter. Bo Jackson will go in from the 6, and Auburn's back on top to stay at 21-17. Next possession, here goes Tommy Agee again. His best day as a Tiger, 219 yards rushing. This 44-yard gallop increased Auburn's lead to 11. But Maryland would not roll over and die. Esiason takes the Terps 80 yards in less than a minute. The score came here on a 40-yard strike to Russell Davis. A try for two failed, 27-22 Auburn, 4.5 minutes remaining. The Tigers consume some time, and a Lewis Colbert punt nailed the Terps deep with less than a minute remaining. That's when Quincy Williams gets to Esiason here. The ball is loose. Donnie Humphrey recovers for a late Auburn touchdown, and it was bedlam on the Plains as Auburn scores a 35-23 homecoming win over Maryland.
When Jack Smith dropped out of the Supper Club, he predicted the numbers would change, that attendance would be spotty sometimes, great other times, and that's the way it's been. But the club's originator wrote, if only 10 people showed up, the meetings would be a success. The anonymous host had a simple idea of what the Friendly Supper Club should be. Jack Smith said he just wanted it to become a Montgomery tradition, that the club could contribute to understanding in the city. He didn't want it tied to individuals or politics. Simply talking and breaking bread together, he wrote, could demonstrate that people want racial barriers torn down, not built up. Well, so far the Supper Club has survived Jack Smith's early retirement of sorts, a bomb threat, some small crowds, and has gone on to find a new meeting place when it had to. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Back in 1961, West Side Story was the Academy Award winner for Best Picture and Best Director. Ernest Hemingway died at the age of 63. Harold Robbins published The Carpetbaggers, and Joseph Heller's Catch-22 was released that year. The popular songs of 1961 included
Tonight, the light of love is in your eyes. Then will you love me tomorrow? I'm a-walking in the rain. Tears are falling and I feel a pain. Wishing you were here by me to end this misery. And I wonder.
As far as television was concerned, this was the year FCC Chairman Newton Minow called it the vast wasteland. In 1961, the Yankees won the World Series, beating the Reds in 5 games, and the University of Alabama was the top college football team in the nation. They went on to beat Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl 10-3. It was also the year that Gary Player won the Masters, and the United States sent in armed helicopters to Vietnam to support its 3,200 troops there. That's a quick look back at the year 1961. The year is 1962. February 20th is the day astronaut John Glenn orbits the Earth aboard Friendship 7. The first privately owned satellite, Telstar, was placed in orbit, and Americans down below were listening to this kind of music.
Soldier boy, oh my little soldier boy. Well, they got a new dance and it goes like this. Yeah, the name of the dance is the peppermint twist.
In the fall of 1962, President John Kennedy imposed naval blockades in the midst of the Cuban Missile Crisis, forcing the Soviets to withdraw their nuclear missiles from the island. And a former circuit judge from Barber County was elected governor in Alabama. George Wallace defeated Ryan DeGraffenreid from Tuscaloosa in a runoff election. 2 movies set in Alabama won Academy Awards that year: Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird and Anne Bancroft in The Miracle Worker. And the 1962 Alabama football team beat Oklahoma 17-0 in the Orange Bowl. And that's a quick look back at 1962.
It's the most deadly and dangerous criminal activity known. That's what Vice President George Bush told a radio audience in June. All public officials and private, civic, and social groups support the Vice President's position. But it's not easy to catch and arrest these people because they are understandably careful, shrewd, and cagey. This description gives insight to what police have to deal with in investigating, arresting, and convicting drug smugglers.
A major dealer would live outside the main area he would operate in order to keep the major task force from being able to watch him very easily. If you live 2,000 yards off of a road somewhere, you can't hardly sit back and watch people and see what is exactly going on. You live out in the country, you have 1 or 2 people that move the narcotic for you as cocaine or anything, morphine, whatever you are distributing. And these people bring it into the city to their own contacts.
The war goes on in this city against drug trafficking, but police are hampered by budgets which are just a drop in the bucket compared to what they would need to even come close to shutting down the major drug traffic in this city. But they've made some dents in the business, and their efforts continue, and drug dealers know it. The word on the street is, the heat is on. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Yes, I guess I do. I guess it was necessary. I really, unfortunate, but I think it's necessary. We've got to protect our country some way.
Well, I definitely think they were right about doing it because we let the Cubans take over Grenada and then they'll take over somewhere else.
Feelings about that?
Well, I think they did right.
Why?
Because I think we don't need to be intimidated.
Okay, thank you.
I think the president did the right thing.
Why?
Because if you let the communists keep on taking over, they just keep on taking over.
Well, I think that Grenada is strategically important, and I agree with Reagan about, we should have our forces down there because it could become a Soviet, missile site. And, I think he's doing the right thing.
I think it was a pretty good idea. Happened at the right time before they had time to build up forces from Cuba. So I thought it worked out real well.
Help us to realize we come a mighty long way, but the closer and closer we get to the top, the rougher it gets. We still have a lot of hard work for us. These are men of the blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
You know what we got ahead of us next week. I mean, that's what it's all about.
He's 44 years old tomorrow. So let's get today.
Ask everybody to dump him in the shower and wet him up.
Well, all right. Hey, I gotta go talk about you guys. Happy birthday to you. Happy
expecting to get the ball as much. I thought they was going to be stopping, you know, the inside game like the other teams were. And they just was running outside, and they was giving the ball to me and Randall, and we took advantage of it.
He was different, but he was good, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he was a great quarterback. It was everything I thought. You know, the time I blocked the pass, I thought he had broke my wrist. The ball, he threw the ball so hard. I don't see how can the receiver hold on to the ball.
Hey, were you prouder of anybody than Quincy?
No, there's nobody I could want it more than Quincy. That's Quincy, you know, just going out there and doing the job when it's needed to be done.
Did you know that Donnie was on the ball?
Yes. As soon as I looked up, I found the ball and I seen him done a jump on it. And so I tried to get it before he did.
Tell me about old Donnie Humphrey getting on that ball.
I don't think we'll ever live it down in practice next week.
Are you going to be able to put up with Donnie Humphrey this week?
I don't know. He talks enough as it is, but I know it's going to be bad this week.
They're all saying, all your buddies on the front are saying, boy, you're going to be hard to live with next week.
No, because this game is over with now.
You had 3 backs go over 100 yards today, one over 200. How does that make you feel?
Great. They deserve it. They're great runners, and I'm just glad that we could block for them.
The way we take our satisfaction is them gaining their yards and a victory for us. That's all our satisfaction. That makes us feel great.
For a defensive guy, Donnie Humphrey's not bad, eh?
Oh, he's terrific. I hate to block him, though.
Every snap today?
Everyone except Warren.
You gonna sleep good tonight?
Very good. Very good.
You all ended up running the football at him today. You had 3 guys to go over 100, one over 200. Is that what you look for?
That's what we had to do to win the ball game. And they played the same defense as Kentucky. And the only way to beat that defense is run right at them. And that's what we did.
Let them see that we can run the ball, you know, up the middle. We don't have to run the option as, you know, as a wishbone team. We can just run it at them, straight at them. That's what we're going to do next weekend.
We turned the ball over 3 times today. That's not like our offense, and we put our defense in some bad situations, and it made it to where we had to come back in the end and have a long drive for a touchdown. And our offense has played well under pressure this year so far. Our defense has played even better under pressure. It seems that we always put the burden on their shoulders at the end of the game, and I'm thankful that we have the type of defense we have, with the great players and a lot of character that all want to win.
Jonathan Snell and his sister Carol Lancaster were arrested Saturday and taken to the Watauga County Jail in Prattville. Mrs. Lancaster, who earlier reported having a vision of where the Bouchillon body was located, was charged with tampering with evidence from the scene and is being held under $10,000 bond. Her brother, Jonathan Snell, was originally charged with murder, but this morning that charge was upgraded to capital murder and no bond was set. Snell was taken before Watauga County District Judge Philip Wood, where Prattville attorney Stephen Langham was appointed to defend him. Watauga County Sheriff's Department investigator Nick Rocchio says the probe of the drug-related murder hasn't slowed down, and they expect more arrests. In the meantime, Jonathan Snell and his sister Carol Lancaster remain behind bars. For Jonathan Snell, it could be a long wait before further court action. The Watauga County grand jury isn't scheduled to meet until late January to consider the evidence in the murder of Jimmy Bouchillon. The Sheriff's Department is still trying to locate the victim's blue 1983 model truck. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News, Prattville.
When you go to the polls tomorrow, you'll be choosing House and Senate members to a 3-year term, which completes the term started after last year's election, but cut short because of reapportionment. The Secretary of State's office thinks turnout will be low because it's an unusual off-year election. Officials say some of the motivation for a larger turnout disappeared when the state Supreme Court took the proposed Constitution off the ballot. In many cases, like Montgomery County, you'll still find the Constitution on the ballot, but your vote won't be counted. In other counties, the lever may be blocked or the ballot marked out. Other constitutional amendments on the ballot in Montgomery County include 3, which, if approved, will continue a 20-year-old school tax for another 20 years. And another lackluster amendment affecting the state docks property will appear in every county. It has not been controversial and allows the docks to convey some of its property to local governments. The real contest on the ballot involves the Democrats, the Republicans, and this year, a new breed, the Independents.
On October 1st, the power brokers were laughing at you. On November 8th, you can have the last laugh.
Some of the independents are using this hard-hitting commercial focusing on the Democratic Party's hand-picking its nominees as a central issue.
Make no mistake about it, they picked the Democrat for the House District 73 race.
Some Republicans are also keying in on the Democratic nomination process, and some Democrats are even campaigning against that power structure that's accused of controlling the Democrats.
I have consistently voted against AEA, Joe Reed, and Labor.
And many others are simply running on a political philosophy or past record campaign. In some counties, there will be U.S. Justice Department poll watchers. 115 of them will oversee the proceedings in Conecuh, Dallas, Hale, and Sumter counties. Polling officials say that with a light turnout, they're hoping to have final results complete before 10 o'clock. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
The Office of Highway and Traffic Safety gave the troopers almost $500,000 to cover overtime salaries for off-duty officers to patrol the highways from November 10, 1983 through July 4, 1984. According to Highway Department figures, almost 91% of vehicles traveling rural highways exceed the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. Of those, 28% travel at speeds in excess of 65 miles per hour. Director of the Department of Public Safety, Colonel Byron Prescott, says the increase in the number of motorists exceeding the speed limit has been accompanied by a dramatic increase in the number of rural traffic fatalities. Although troopers' efforts will be directed toward enforcement of the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, officers say they anticipate an increase in the number of arrests for driving under the influence. Alcohol-related accidents account for more than 50% of all rural traffic fatalities. State troopers say because of this grant, if you're one of the people who likes to drive over the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, or if you drive while drinking, your chances of seeing a blue light in your rearview mirror are increasing. Matt Carmack, WSFA TV News.
Yeah, we're going to get some. Thank you very much.
Oh, I see. Those are some of the buttons that...
Right, and we're going to have some buttons. It's a good time to come by and talk and have lunch. Well, I work during the day, you know, so Saturday is about the only
seminary has been out of But anyway, I said to him, I am not going back to it.
First item, I have on November 15th, what they are determining round-trip ticket would be. And the staff is recommending that this supposed to give nothing other than general statements of that nature and justification for it. Staff, the increase in their passenger fares, and this decrease in expenses due to the abandonment of the lines. Not the Alabama intrastate operation from the general operations either.
Other aircraft which are better than our counterpart, but they're not as necessary for us as they are for them. Well, it is a small number. I think it's a spinoff of free technology, basically. All of the advances that we had in microprocessing units, computer units, micro-miniaturization have been focused into high technology arenas such as in space. We're also very fortunate that our engine technologies were well advanced, and we've had very, very reliable launch vehicles. And the combination of micro-miniaturization and the great R&D effort put forth by NASA has given us a very solid, a very well-developed space program.
Mm-hmm. Soviets are doing.
Well, it's an excellent surveillance. Ask about Grenada. The only TAC error that I'm aware of that airplane will come in on some other. They have other aircraft which are better than our counterpart, but they're not as necessary for us as they are for them.
The year is 1963, a bittersweet year for most Americans. The motion picture industry saw the premiere of the most expensive movie ever made when a stunning Elizabeth Taylor starred in the $40 million production of Cleopatra. The top songs of the day included In January of 1963, Governor George Wallace took his oath of office, swearing segregation forever. Tragedy struck in Birmingham that same year when a bomb exploded in a black church, killing 4 little girls. Later in the summer, 200,000 marchers came to Washington, rallying for civil rights. They heard Martin Luther King's Dream speech. In October, the World Series was great for Dodger fans. Los Angeles swept the series in 4 straight over the Yankees. In football that year, Texas was the #1 college football team. And who was the Heisman Trophy winner in 1963? Roger Staubach, while Mississippi was the SEC champ. But the news event of 1963 came on November 22nd, when the world stood in silent shock when an assassin's bullet killed President John Kennedy. And that's a look back at the year 1963.
That divorce is a part of our society can't be questioned.
It's kind of hard because I lived with him for a long time. Kind of upset me at first, but now I understand.
Last year in Alabama, 24,910 families split up through divorce, leaving an undetermined number of children in one-parent homes.
When they had a lot of fights, my daddy started to cry.
All this has added up to something of a revolution in the way families are perceived and has left many people looking for answers.
Well, I'm saying that if the child sees a lot of fighting, or hears a lot of fighting, or sees a lot of fighting, hears a lot of fussing, the child knows something is about to happen.
Essentially, most children after a divorce experience a sense of numbness, unbelief.
The family as a unit, like we used to know even 20 years ago, has changed considerably. The whole makeup of the family has changed.
Don Hill is a professional counselor. He's been studying family problems for 22 years and often works with children of divorce.
It's still a stigma, a social stigma, though it's not nearly as much as it used to be. You know, years ago it was just almost unheard of, and if people did get a divorce, they were so embarrassed to even mention it. And now every family has been struck with a divorce of someone pretty close to that particular family. And now people are more open in talking about it, but still it does contain an element of a social stigma that will make people somewhat reticent to talk about their personal situation.
But in addition to the social and emotional cost of divorce, there are also legal and economic aspects. And too often, the children of divorce are called losers on all accounts. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
This is domestic relations court, where it all begins or ends for many families. This is the place divorces are made.
We average around 246 cases a month.
Family court judge Craig Miller has seen his share of divorces in past years, including his own.
Children represent the tragedy of divorce, but not so much the tragedy of the divorce itself, it's the inability of the parents to work out their problems after the divorce in relation to how they handle their children.
Others agree that the tragedy of the tens of thousands of cases filed here extends well beyond the court.
There are usually serious financial problems for children in many divorces that were not present when the family was intact, and so they are.
While Alabama has recently stepped up efforts to make absent parents pay child support, some say it's not enough, and too often the children wind up back in court.
Alabama does not have a law that permits judges to order that income be withheld from wages, and if the absent parent, usually a father, gets behind, the mother has no choice, if he won't pay willingly, but to take him back to court. And then the enforcement is dependent on the attitude of the judge, or whether there's jail space, or perhaps whether he's employed.
It adds up to what Judge Miller calls a legal form of child abuse.
This is a case of child abuse. Not physical, not mental, but the fact that the child has been bounced around like a ping pong ball for the last 10 years. Yes, parents are notoriously guilty of using the children for their own selfish interest. Yes, this does occur. Do the children manipulate the parents? Well, children have always manipulated the parents. When you have a child that is the product of a so-called broken home or divorce situation, this gives the child a bigger stage now, because he can very easily prey on the guilt feelings of the parents. So yes, the child can manipulate both parents, and quite frequently does.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
In Sardis, about 9 miles south of Selma, there's only one voting precinct, a small, old building once used as a grocery store. Voters trickled in all day, and perhaps that pace was good, since the tiny building can't accommodate a large flow of voters. 2 Justice Department poll workers monitored today's balloting. They kept a log of the number of black and white voters who needed help from one of the 10 local poll workers, and they even logged our visit to the tiny precinct. The federal watchers have been to Sardis 4 times before. They were sent this time to make sure the voting is conducted fairly. They may not have much to report, since poll workers say voting has been light but smooth. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Sardis.
Normally in a presidential or gubernatorial election you'd expect more complaints, but we seemingly are having a number equal to a presidential or gubernatorial election today. I think it's clear that the complaints themselves point out the need for further changes by the Alabama legislature in the conduct of elections. We need some problem-solving commissions. We need a state elections commission to go in and solve problems as they occur on election day. And I think we need an institutionalized training school to give election officials who work on election day the training and the backup materials that they need in order to conduct a smooth and efficient and perhaps a fair elections process.
Hamilton was taken to Lee County to enter the guilty plea because he told officers that's where he decided to murder Ms. Devon on the night of April 11th. Hamilton told Lee County Circuit Judge G.H. Wright he stabbed Ms. Devon to death. After discussing Hamilton's plea, Judge Wright sentenced him to life in prison, the maximum for felony murder. Last Thursday, as part of a plea bargain negotiated by Attorney General Charles Graddick, Hamilton led officers to a wooded area of Harris County, Georgia, where they found the young woman's skeletal remains. The Attorney General says he would like to have seen a stiffer punishment for the murder, but he says without the proof of additional facts, it was impossible. The life sentence on the state murder charge will run concurrently with the life sentence Hamilton received last week when he pled guilty to federal kidnapping charges. The body of Missy Devon is still in Columbus, Georgia, being held by state officials there. There's no word yet on when the skeletal remains will be returned for burial. Mac Carmack, WSFA TV News in Lee County.
Y'all
this gives all these kids a chance to compete on a statewide basis, probably the biggest competition they'll ever experience in their lives. Perhaps particularly in the lesser-known sports like archery or kayaking and those kind of sports. We hope to have 15 to 20 events this year.
I know when I was in high school that I enjoyed running and always...
These programs in a state. One of the things...
I think it's very necessary that all the states have some kind of athletic program for amateur athletes and encouraging them. Because I think when the kids, if you're an athlete, a natural athlete, it's a lot better to be able to be encouraged and go out and compete than it is to stay home and get involved in some kind of crime or something like that.
Teams that can approach these kids and reach them in a far better way than any of us could, and we're just...
Alabama is one of the first states in the country to have a sports festival sanctioned by the U.S. Olympic Committee. It's sponsored jointly by the Amateur Athletic Society and the Governor's Commission on Physical Fitness. Officials say the event is designed to allow the state's amateur athletes to show their stuff and to allow participants to catch the eyes of Olympic officials. Organizers hope to raise $100,000 to put on next year's competition, and that's where the group Alabama comes in. Members of the group will hold a series of press conferences like this one to inform the public about the event and also to help seek monetary support from community businesses. The group has already donated $15,000, and members say they have a personal interest in the Amateur Sports Festival.
I know when I was in high school that I enjoyed running and I always would dream of being able to run in the Olympics or something like that. And through this program, I think that maybe kids in our area that do have a desire to do something like that now have a place to go and maybe get professional advice.
The sports festival will be held in Birmingham next July. Officials hope to have as many as 5,000 participants. Lois Russell, WSFA TV News.
All righty.
The difficulty that a person would get into in that situation is actually convincing a judge that there was enough of a difference to affect the outcome of the election, which is what a person would have to do in order to have an election contest declared null and void and a new election ordered.
What's the earliest someone can file an official challenge in court?
I would urge anybody that has any doubt about the outcome to file a challenge within 24 hours after the election. So certainly sometime tomorrow, if I was a disgruntled candidate, I'd be in court asking for a recount or challenging the outcome of the election.
By getting all white sleep. This town cannot progress, divided, and you can't unite.
And I'd be the last to try to gloss that over as you would. But I think it is incumbent on all of us, and I take the first pledge of cooperation, the spirit of working together, to the end that we can have a better city.
The office of mayor.
That I will.
That's a better city. I think that's what we all want. I think that's why we've all sought office.
One black person to be pro tem of this. Fine. Hold. Outside.
Those are the rules of procedure that I operate under the right.
Clay. Yeah.
Members of the Committee.
Under the rule, all in favor of the resolution.
the full facilities of the city of Montgomery to help you help your constituents.
All went well with the formal ceremonies. Mayor Fulmer, the sweet victory behind him, starts his second full term. 5 members return to council, and 4 newcomers are on board.
My message to you and the city of Montgomery is let us all count our blessings.
Mayor Fulmer told the crowd he and the council need to overcome personal and political differences and cooperate.
And let us work together for a better city.
Easier said than done. Talk of cooperation gave way to discord as the council elected its new officers. Elise Reynolds of District 7 was elected president on a 5-4 vote. Bud Chambers of District 8 was elected president pro tem on a 5-4 vote. The 4 black council members supported Joseph Dickerson of District 5.
That was the only reason why this council did not have elected a black member as pro tem in this council.
While Mr. Reed thinks the council missed a chance to mend some fences, Mayor Fulmer says the council is off to an excellent start. He referred this reporter to the October election returns and quoted a famous political leader who said, "You can't win at the bargaining table what you haven't won on the battlefield." And Mr. Reed says the mayor lost the battle. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
The game's going to be won down front, you know, how well our offensive line do and how well their defense does, and that's just what it is whoever wins down front.
They just put the big men up there. They're going to pass the ball probably 12, 15 times, and everything else is going to be straight at us.
It's going to be man for man, and that's the way football should be played.
Like Coach Dye told, it's going to be one of this old-fashioned football game. 2 teams going to line up and see who can outman the other one, and that's where it's going to be. You're not going to see too much pass on either side of the ball, so it's going to be, like it down the hole.
I have a lot of confidence in all our players and in our coaches, and I feel like that we have some momentum going into the end of the year, and I feel real good about our team.
Good against good. We're going to come out on top.
The year is 1964, the year Congress passed the Civil Rights Act that outlawed racial discrimination in hotels, motels, and in restaurants. The Gulf of Tonkin Resolution is adopted to stop enemy aggression in Vietnam, and in that same month, the first U.S. bombing raids began over Vietnam. Back at home, the kids were listening to this kind of music.
That's when I fell for leader of the pack.
Away from the war in Vietnam, the federal government began its own war on poverty. Later in 1964, Lyndon Johnson gives the Democrats a landslide win over Barry Goldwater. At the movies, we watched Goldfinger, Mary Poppins, and My Fair Lady. And in sports, a young boxer from Louisville, Cassius Clay, defeats Sonny Liston for the heavyweight championship of the world. And that's a look back at 1964.
Captains and majors are not made from lieutenants, but most of you have. Those that have been when they come to work. Boy, if they've got problems at home, that's all I have to do is go.
To Lieutenant Jerry Hankins.
Combat the urgent problem of alcohol and drug abuse among our nation's youth. The chemical people.
Not a good party if the people don't serve beer or wine or something.
And behind the numbers are real children and real parents.
And like I say, even if they don't even have a problem at all, if they'll just bring them out there to kind of get an overall view of what's going on in Montgomery, what's going on in their community. It is here. Drugs are here, alcohol abuse is here, and we've got to do something, and this is a start. We were looking.
The Democrats still control the legislature, but the party did suffer some defeats yesterday. The Democrats were criticized earlier by many for hand-picking nominees to run against Republicans and others, and the voters apparently shared some of those criticisms. Last year, there were 97 Democrats in the House. That's been cut to 87. The largest gain by another group was by independents. from none last year to 6 this year, many of them former Democratic incumbents who the party passed over but voters wanted to keep. 2 other categories jumped. Women now hold 6 House seats and blacks have 19, 2 more than last year. In the Senate, the effect is the same. Democrats dropped from 32 to 28. Independents picked up 3 seats. Republicans have 1 more seat than before, and there are now 2 women in the Senate and 5 blacks, including 1 in Montgomery. The swing to Republicans was most dramatic in Montgomery, where only 1 served in the House last year. This year, there are 4 in the House and 1 Senate Republican from Montgomery.
I tried to run as a Democrat, and I felt like I was a good, viable candidate, and they denied me the right to run as a Democrat, and was so happy to go with the Republican Party. And
in Montgomery, of course, we have 4 Republicans. The state, we've increased, I think, to some 16 Republicans. I hope some of these independents will convert over to the Republican side, and I think it's going to be a different picture all across the state.
Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Democrats for not holding a primary came to fruition?
I believe that.
And see the destruction and the death, civilian casualties like they have in other parts of the world. And it's due to people like you all, and of course, I'm a member of all these organizations myself. So I'm happy to sign this proclamation. I believe, had they known that fate had in store for them an early death, a short livelihood, they would have really have rather died in the service of their country than in any other manner.
The Father Walter Memorial Center is home for some very special children. The center provides 24-hour health care for children with multiple physical and mental disabilities. But the Memorial Center is just one part of the Resurrection Catholic Missions.
And we also have a school, an elementary school, grades kindergarten through 8th grade, and then a preschool for children of 2.5 years old to 5. So it's education, hospital care, and religion.
The mission began back in 1943 on Montgomery's north side. It moved to its present location near Boylston 17 years ago. Father Potolsky says the mission has served thousands of children over the past 40 years, giving them total care for the mind, body, and soul. And he says for many of these children, the mission and the center are the only homes they'll ever know. The Resurrection Mission has 6 main buildings, full-time nursing and teaching staffs, and operates on a budget of more than $1 million. Where does this money come from?
We have to be concerned about the Christian belief of people who will help others, and so others who have the means are the ones who do respond to the appeal that Father is responsible for here in Montgomery.
Contributions can be mailed directly to the mission in Boylston. Lois Russell, WSFA TV News.
The Sotos made watching television a family project tonight. They drove from Wetumpka to see Chemical People, so the family as a unit would know more about drug and alcohol abuse.
Well, we were discussing it on the way down here, and we talked to them constantly about it, peer pressure and just what drugs can do to a family.
Well, my dad starts it up about, if someone gives you a cigarette and says you're not cool if you don't give a cigarette. My dad says that's peer pressure. And
there were many other parents here tonight who, like the Sotos, are afraid their children might get involved with drugs.
I have 3 teenage children, and they're out there in the community rubbing shoulders with other teenagers, and I feel like that I need to know a little bit about what they're up against.
I'm interested in just seeing really how easy it is for them to get a hold of the drugs, and if there's anything that I can do, as a parent to put a stop to it.
The Chemical People.
A television program got parents and children out of their homes and started some discussion. Organizers hope to build on the momentum and create a task force that can fight the drug and alcohol problem in Montgomery on a full-time basis. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Regardless of who goes to Sugar Bowl, we still got that chance to tie for the championship. But I can understand. It disappoints me on the one hand about the Sugar Bowl thing, but on the other hand, I can understand too. From the Sugar Bowls Committee's viewpoint, it is a business. They're in the business, And it is a business decision, and I can understand that because we've got an open date and then we've got 2 more games.
Well, the farthest thing from Perkins' mind this week is the Sugar Bowl, or any bowl for that matter. He's concerned about a very good Southern Mississippi team. It's the same team that right here on this field last year snapped Alabama's 57-game home winning streak. And you better believe the players that were around remember it.
That loss there sticks in my mind more than any of them, I believe, because that did break the long winning streak, and you know, it hurt a lot of us and hurt a lot of people who contributed to that streak, and we felt like that we let a lot of people down.
I think we took them lightly last year, so this year, going against Southern Mississippi, we're going to go in the game. You know we got to play a full 60-minute football game. I think we do that, we could beat them.
It plays a big, role in preparing for them this week and everything. It's coming down. We hadn't, played, good against them in the last, 2 years and everything, and we got a lot to prove.
Revenge in mind for this week?
Well, you wouldn't be a competitor if it wasn't in your mind.
Southern Mississippi has quietly had a very good football season. They're on probation, but sporting a healthy 7-2 record. More on the team that Ray Perkins calls Bama's biggest challenge, tonight at 10. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports, Tuscaloosa.
Well, they're the best football team that we've faced thus far. They're solid in every area, defensively, kicking game, and offensively. They're playing good, sound football, tough, aggressive football. They've got great personnel in a lot of positions. They've got similar personnel to LSU. They've got one thing that LSU don't have right now, I think, is probably a belief in themselves because they've had some success and tasted a lot of success this year, and they believe they can win.
The subject, of course, is Southern Mississippi. The Golden Eagles are quietly having a very good season. They've rolled to a 7-2 record, but because of probation have lived in virtual obscurity. Revenge is in mind for Alabama this week. Last year, the Eagles tripped the tide 38-29 to break the coveted 57-game win streak in Bryant-Denny Stadium. And Bama players realize turning the tables won't be easy.
They're a good team. They get after you, and they've shown on film, I've watched them on film, they really get to the ball, swarm the ball, and they have a good defensive secondary, and, they're just going to be a good challenge for us. Well, they got a great quarterback, and that running back that ran all over us last year has been beaten out by a freshman, so that must be some kind of freshman. And their offensive line has got a couple of players supposed to go in the top 3 rounds of the draft. So they're going to be a very talented team, but we got to play hard physical football to have a chance.
A couple of other notes on Saturday's game. A win by Alabama would put them in an elite group in college football. 600 victories. Only 3 other schools, Notre Dame, Texas, and Michigan, have reached that lofty plateau. An Alabama win will also give the Crimson Tide wins over all 3 Mississippi schools this year. That would be the 7th time that's occurred in Alabama's storied football history. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports, Tuscaloosa.
The Montgomery Area Mental Health Authority is one place children of divorce are finding help for their worries, fears, and depressions.
They used to fight and argue. They used to argue at me a lot. What I'm saying is I know that they wanted to get divorced, and because there's too many fights and all that. Now I'm glad they did because I can have better time with my parents.
Louetta Craig spends many hours working with children of divorce, trying to help them get over the trauma.
Another problem is that the child feels that he did something in the home to cause it. Many children are egocentric. They see the world from their standpoint. Parents are in the world to take care of me. So if one parent leaves, what will keep the other parent from leaving?
For children, that's a standard reaction to divorce, according to research psychologist Ralph Spiga. What is not so standardized is how the children handle it.
Certainly, the more intellectually aware and capable the child, the better able he or she will be to deal with the divorce.
But aside from the immediate impact of divorce, there are also long-range effects.
Boys and girls are affected differently. Boys, for example, where there are, let's say in a conflict-ridden divorce, tend to suffer some intellectual impairment. Girls from divorced families tended to marry younger, to be very quick to dance with boys at a dance, to have kind of many flirtatious relationships with boys during high school, whereas
if there are differences of opinion as to what the first step should be in helping a child cope with divorce, one thing almost everyone agrees on: Children of divorce need to talk about it.
In any kind of problem a child has, he feels himself alone unless he can be in contact with other children who've had similar problems. And it's very important for children to be around other children who've gone through divorce.
I've been saying to myself that I cannot do nothing about it. It's their problem.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Let's go back to 1965, the year of the Selma to Montgomery March and the Viola Liuzzo murder, and the year of the Federal Voting Rights Act. It was also the year T.S. Eliot died, as did newsman Edward R. Murrow at the age of 57. America and the world watched astronaut Ed White on the first spacewalk, 21 minutes in space, attached by a mechanical umbilical cord to the Gemini 4 capsule. Down below, this is what the rest of us were listening to. At the movies, we watched the saga of Dr. Zhivago and the triumph of the Trapp family in The Sound of Music. The triumphant University of Alabama football team was #1 in the nation. And Mike Garrett won the Heisman Trophy. Who won the World Series in 1965? Los Angeles beat Minnesota in 7 games. And that's a glance back at 1965.